Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good friend, sometimes lover, Ty Franck. How are you, Ty?
I'm doing better now because we finally, after like months of trying to pin down the schedules, get to have Joanne come hang out with us.
Yeah.
We've been promising this to the 8 people who listen to us for like 5 months now.
Yeah, but they were very adamant about having her on, and they're so excited. They're going to be so excited. Just so you know, we give everybody the disclaimer when they come on. I hope you're prepared for the down swoon of fame that's going to befall you now that you're on this podcast.
You're
awesome.
Instantly half as famous as you used to be when you come on here.
But
a downgrade. Yeah.
She's actually less famous for being on Time That Guy than she was before. I just want to explain. So I'm working in LA right now, so I don't have the same setup and everything like that. But I'm at a special friend's house, a special friend of the podcast. Come say hello.
It's me, Clint.
Remember this guy?
No, I don't. Who is that?
He might jump on a little bit towards the end, but we're so excited to have you, and so excited to do this podcast with you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's.
Am I jumping in?
Yeah.
Is that a cue
yeah,
for me?
I was talking to you,
Okay.
Joanne.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Are you?
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I've been waiting. Same 5 months that you've been waiting, and yeah, that's good.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in, so I live in Southern Ontario on a farm, but I've gone to my little shop because the internet's better there.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I'm sitting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Are you working on anything right now?
No, I've taken a little break and just waiting to see what next.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I bet you slept for a month after every season of The Expanse. I don't understand how, Ty and I talk about this all the time on the podcast. And whenever the subject of costumes come up, and it's definitely one of the things people remember the most about The Expanse. And when we get talking about it, we're like, I do not know how she kept up with every outfit, every civilization, every planet, every culture. I mean, it was just insane.
It had its moments, but, I have to say we were very well led. And we were, first of all, the story and the scripts, that's what drew me and kept me there. And we were so well led through it that I have to say Narain Shankar is, he's the guy, and he would remember everything. And guide us through as new stories and new peoples and new civilizations happened. And so it really was a team effort in that regard of having that happen, and a team effort on our end in our department too. There were a lot of people that were responsible for making that happen and come together and actually end up on camera. It was a big world.
So before we jump into The Expanse, and I would like to know a little bit about how you got interested in this industry and what you worked on to develop those skill levels to be able to handle something like The Expanse. Is this something that you've always wanted to do? Did you always want to be a part of the film and television industry?
I fell into it as a young person. I had no idea what I was going to do. I wasn't fitting anywhere. School wasn't really working for me. And I met some people who were working in small local television props and set deck, and I could sew. So, it was one of those, well, can you hem these pants on a commercial or that kind of stuff? And it just, honestly, the first time I was on a set, it was like, this is meant for me. There's nothing else for me. And costume is where I landed. And that was in Alberta. So at that time, a lot of major productions came in, big Westerns, those kind of shows. And so that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned how to do what I do. I have to say that background of Westerns I applied that every day on The Expanse. And I think it was that sensibility of the frontier and the grittiness and the real relationships of people in those kind of stories, and that it informed everything I did and always has, I think.
I gotta admit that kind of surprises me that you sort of fell into it, because design and meticulous design is such a big part of what you do now and what you did for us. that I'm surprised you didn't have a design background.
It was all on the job and just learning from people that I worked with. And I guess it was just always meant to be. I think it was just, that was the right job for me. And lucky me, it fell in front of me and I was able to do it. But yeah, it was all just that way.
How cool is that? I didn't know. Are you from Alberta? Are you from that area?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I grew up in
so beautiful
there. Yeah. Yeah, it is beautiful there. Yeah.
What was there anything that like blew your mind as a fan or somebody that you got to work on or people that you got to work with when you were up in Alberta?
I guess the one big one was got to work on Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood.
You never told me this. How could you? How could we be friends for 7 years and you never told me that?
You already knew Frances then.
What's that?
You already knew Frances then before she came to work on our show.
Yes, I did. I knew her from that. Yeah. So I didn't design that. I was in my learning stages, but that was an incredible project to learn from. And his organization and the way he runs things is, you fit in and go, oh, I see, and go. And so my famous alteration story is there's a picture of Unforgiven and it's Clint Eastwood standing. It's just the back and his hat and it's kind of in silhouette. So this jacket. So we're in the middle of small town Alberta and I've got, it's the kind of thing, the whole kit's in my room. We're going to camera the next day. It's like knock, knock, knock. It's his men's costumer and behind him is looming Clint. And he's like, do you think you can help me with my jacket? I was like, sure. Yes, of course I can. Oh my God. So it comes in and it's been tailored for him, but it's too big. And I was like, oh. And now I tell this story to tailors and they turn their heads. I was like, yes, I'd be happy to take care of that for you. I have my sewing machine, which is my mother's sewing machine. My family immigrated from Denmark after the war. And it's a little old green Elna sewing machine that she literally did the wartime alterations on, like cut the coats down and make them fit, that kind of thing. That's what I had. Anyway, yes, sir, I'd be happy to do your coat. Do a seam right up the back. Fine. Puts it on. Yes, good. And then that makes the poster. So when you look at that Unforgiven poster,
wow,
that's my alteration. But it is blown out. Like you can't see the alteration.
I cannot believe you worked on that. That is my favorite Western of all time. We've talked about it multiple times on this podcast.
You?
Yeah. What
have you? Yeah.
What is some of your basic observations just off the top of your head? Like, what is it about Clint that is about his structure and his organization of how he makes these incredible movies? Like, what was his style like or working with him like?
So he worked with a team that he worked with for many, many years, many of them back from the days of the spaghetti westerns. So there were people, they had a language, in many ways, what happened on The Expanse when after we'd worked together for a while and we all understood each other and knew each other, we didn't have to go through that all the time, every season. It was like that. Like that was a family. It was a family but it was a professional situation. And so they understood what they were doing. They understood what he wanted. He knew what to expect from them. And with new people, the same. It was very understated all the time. And you really had to pay attention because it was so understated. And I think maybe that's how he captured our respect, I think. There was no messing around with anything. He was very direct about his choices and what he wanted. And it was a good set to work on. It was a good set.
So the question I have to ask is, when you were dressing Jared Harris, did you tell him you worked with his dad?
We did talk about that. Yeah? That's right.
Really?
We did talk about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
Wow. So then, I mean, that did you happen to work? Because I know around that time, Legends of the Fall came up to Alberta.
Yeah.
Did you work on that?
Yeah. I did. I worked on that as well. So I was the supervisor, and that was also like an incredible learning experience. Just some really amazing talent all the way up and down the crew and cast. And it was a big project too. Lewin worked on that. Yeah. Lewin and I worked together on that.
He was the first.
Lewin and I have had many conversations about working on Legends of the Fall.
On Legends,
and some of the funnier moments. I won't repeat them because they're Lewin's stories. So if he was going to tell them, we'd bring him on. But the way is so the thing that I love about Legends of the Fall is it had some up and coming actors. You know, the Brad Pitt.
Yep.
It had some sort of mid tier, very solid. They'd been around for a long time. Actors, and then it had some royalty, right? You got Sir Anthony,
right.
you got and Lewin has a story about one of those mid-tier actors deciding to get in a snit about something and getting taken to school by Sir Anthony. And it's like, you know what?
Wow.
Like no one else could do that, but he's Sir Anthony. He can do what he wants, and you're not going to talk back, right? And I love that story so much. If we ever get to have Lewin come on, I really wanted to tell that story. It's one of my favorite Hollywood stories ever. And the great thing about it is Anthony Hopkins has been around forever. He's acting royalty, and just no pretension to him. Mm-hmm. Just like we're all here, we're working. This is our job. Don't get an attitude, or I'll take you behind the woodshed if you get an attitude on you. It's one of my favorite stories. So it's amazing that you were there for that.
So shaking hands, I'm Tony. You know?
What I love about that movie, and also I go back to the novella like once a year. It's one of my favorite novellas. I am fascinated with that time, that turn of the century where you're just coming out of, you're just coming off of horses and you're getting into cars, but they're intertwined. It's when you're walking down the street, you could see a car or a horse. You're still in that transitional period. The fashion is transitional. So even like Tristan's character is full mountain man Western, who's still a guy that's living in the wild. But then you have Aidan Quinn, who's more civilized, and he has the, dressed of the suit and that kind of style. And so, you're getting into World War I and the beginning of World War I. And so that was such a interesting time. And there's so many different forces that are pulling in that movie. You got the train, and they go out the horses with the car to meet the train. And so that it's such a fascinating, and Ed Zwick directed that, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Are you partial? Like, do you enjoy period pieces more than contemporary?
I think I do. I think, for me to start making sense of The Expanse, I had to think of it as a period piece, just a future period piece. And so I think it's that idea of people in a different time and place, and exactly what you're talking about, the forces that come to play and all the influences on what a character ends up expressing in their look, I guess. But maybe everything is period in the end. I don't know. You know what I mean? I guess it is.
How did you first hear about The Expanse?
So I was called by Lynn Rayner, who I had worked with a couple of times before. And that was my first exposure to it. And I was on a Deepa Mehta movie prior to that, at that moment. And shall I say, I had no time at all. There was no time. And I was one of those that was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can even read it. I don't know. Anyway, we made it all happen. And so that's really the first that I ever knew of it was that's first script that I read.
And when you first read that script, were you thinking, oh my God, like all the different sets and the characters and the future and all that stuff, was it daunting to look at?
Totally. It was even more daunting once I was employed. But, it was a big concept. But I think maybe those were strategies to put it in some kind of perspective for me. Was if you think about period shows or stories, you are building a world. It's just a world we've maybe seen or we have reference for, but it does have its own logic to it. And I think once I started thinking about it that way, it helped me try to make some early steps with it. But it was huge, daunting, of course. I have to say that, and this goes back to my work in Westerns and that grounding there, is what spoke to me more than anything was that feeling of the grittiness, the realness that it felt in those characters and the worlds they lived in. And I so often in science fiction, I think things are very clean and antiseptic, and it's just an interpretation that doesn't speak to me. But I understand aging and dirt and the feeling around that. And I think that spoke to me an awful lot about this story. And maybe it made it less science fiction and more a big story about another world, I guess.
I remember going in season 1, because I was just sort of following Narain around at that point, and looking at your board. So what do you call the big board that has like, here's what Martians look like, and here's what, and it also included sort of like, here's what we're pulling from is on that board. And I remember when we were looking at that, and the Belter board had a bunch of like miners. It had like people who work in mines were on that board. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, she gets it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. They're miners, right? And they have utilitarian jumpsuits, and they have hard hats, and they have, they have leather gloves so they can work with tools, and they're covered in muck and dirt. And as soon as I saw that kind of stuff on the board, like any worry I had about what that was going to look like went away, because I'm like, no, she gets it. This is 100% right. And from then on, every time I would see those boards, whenever we'd bring a new thing and like, here's the Martians, and you'd have a board, and we'd look at the board, and all the stuff on there, all the things are like, we're pulling from here and from here in the real world. Almost every time it was the right stuff. So I was always very comforted by that. Like, I don't have to worry. She's already got it. It's right there.
Ty talks a lot about some of his favorite movies, and we talk about some of our favorite movies, science fiction movies that we love so much, like Alien or Blade Runner or things like that. And one of the things that we talk about when we first saw Alien was like, oh, wow, you're seeing a working class group of people in space that's dirty, it's raw, it's rough. They're complaining about their bonuses and things. And that was one of, his inspirations. Right. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about The Expanse. So before every season, before season 1, season 2, you do, as an actor, you do the intellectual work. You break it down, you understand what you're fighting for that season, what you're, break down each scene, you kind of do all that work, but it's all intellectual. Then when I show up with my fitting with you is like the time that everything turns on. So I show up to the fitting, and you and I have a conversation, and you explain, Amos has went through this since we last saw him, so we are expressing this through his clothes. If it was the season where it was like they're really exhausted and they were working all season and they're coming back and dropping off peaches, so his outfit would be expressed like this, and it would have tears there, and then I would put the outfit on, and we would have a conversation about what we would wear, how we would do it, and then as I'm walking around, that's when it goes from the head to the body, and that's when it goes from the head to the emotion, and you connect to it. And that was always a special part of the thing, is when I got there, getting to see you. And how have you been? And, it's like walking into like a warm, hug, and then we started that process, and that was always the beginning of the process for me. As soon as I did the outfit and walked around, then I was able then to like continue on through that.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
I would assume that to get to Joanne's level in her profession, one of the skill sets that she's developed is the ability to work around the enormous but fragile egos of actors. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that she's so warm and comforting to you actors, because she had to develop that skill set, right?
Did I just expose myself?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm sure she did.
I was going to say that fitting room that's the moment for a costume designer as well. Like, that's the relationship with the actor, with the character, and all of those things that are integrated into that costume that you put on have come from conversations with people like Ty or Narain, or, all kinds of discussions have gone on in our prep as well. Like, what will happen with that? Oh, let's carry that on. Let's make his jumpsuit just keep coming back, or maybe he 3D prints another one, or no, this one has to carry on. It's got the rip. It's got the blood. He's that guy, right? He's that guy, so to be able to hear you say that, from my point of view, it's gold. That's what you want. That's what I'm there for, I think, is to hopefully facilitate that and help that come together for you or for an actor.
So Wes, is it because that's the first moment where the fact that you're going to be in this show starts to feel real?
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's like now you're putting on the clothes of the character, so now it's real. You're actually doing
yeah,
it.
because there's two different levels of preparation. You do the intellectual work to really understand, know the history, know the character, know who, what, and where, all that stuff. And then once you have that, then you do the physical work where you think about a character holds himself, how he walks, how he listens in the character. And so the jumping off period of that is walking around in his clothes. You walk around his clothes, how it fit. You know, Amos is bigger than I am. So like putting on the clothes and like having that feeling and that kind of presence, that's when everything starts to click with me. And it starts to get into my body, you know, down from my head and into my body. And, you know, so that's my process. But I'm interested in to hearing a little bit about your process, Joanne. So you read the script, the pilot of The Expanse. How does it evolve from there? Where do you start? And then when do you start having the meetings and getting the creative vision from the director and Rain and Ty and Daniel and everybody? How does all that start?
So it's kind of a tsunami that just begins right away. And you know, at the beginning of any project like that, there's a lot of people invested in. I think because it's a period piece of the future, there's a lot of concern about the look and how is it going to be executed in a way that everyone's going to be happy with, but we don't really know what that is. So I think I have to say that Back to Narain and that guide through was really awesome. And so we had a lot of meetings with Seth, the production designer, and his team, and Jim and props, and just sort of trying to work it out. What, you know, particularly the vac suits, that was a big collaborative effort in terms of, you know, one, coming up with something that finally felt like it had legs. And then we get Jim's helmet on it, and we get a harness on it, and all of those elements, and we figure out the boots and what are they going to be, and how are we going to indicate that the magnetic is active, and all of these things. And so it's highly, highly collaborative, particularly in this kind of setting where really we're trying to bring forth a vision that none of us very much understand indefinitely, right? And so I just wanted to come back just for a second about your experience in the fitting room, and to say that it was a big moment in my time as a costume designer when that happened to me with Christopher Plummer. And we were doing a movie called 4 Minutes. So it was a story about the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. And it was a little independent movie. And Christopher Plummer was the only fictional character, and he was the coach, and he was in a wheelchair. So he was a past runner and this, that. So, of course, he comes in like the day before he works, and he's playing an old Brit, and it's like 1953, that kind of thing. So up to his hotel room with a rack of clothes, and we're in there, and he kind of pulls off a ratty old suit that we had brought in, like a wool, exactly what you expect, 3-piece suit, old wool thing. And he puts it on. I'll never forget it. I remember watching him get dressed, and he's in front of the mirror, and he's doing all that. And you could see it happen, what you're describing. And it was like, that was the moment. And I was like, I'll never forget it, but it was a formative thing for me, that exactly what you're saying. So, yeah.
Well, even little kids, you know, probably throughout history, play dress up, and it is a way to pretend you're somebody else. And the act of putting someone else's clothes on makes you feel like you're that person, you know, walking around in your parents' shoes or whatever. And I think it is. I think there's something very primal about it. I liked the way Wes described it. You know, the first time you physically get into the characters is when you put their clothes on. It's not Wes's clothes. It's not his costume. It's Amos's clothes, and he's just borrowing them and putting them on. Yeah. Your description of this Christopher Plummer moment, it's interesting because, you know, he's acting royalty at that point, I'm sure, and been around for a million years. And there's still that primal moment of, I have put someone else's clothes on, so now I am them. That's so interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really true.
I'm going through that right now. I mean, there's something that the thing that I'm working on right now, and you kind of read it, and there's a little bit of like, man, you know, there's always a little bit of like butterflies in the stomach of like how how am I going to get to that point, or how am I going to create to, do that? But we're going through the fitting process. And as soon as you put that outfit on, it's like, oh, I understand now. It starts to happen. It starts to come on, and it's very exciting. Now, when people think about wardrobes in the Expanse, they think about Cheray. And I mean, she has some of the most beautiful outfits, and they are such a outward expression of her performance. And she uses those outfits to tell the story emotionally of where her character is, in power, where her character is with when she lost her husband, how she used the jewelry and all of those things. What was those conversations like, and what was that creative process in terms to create those looks and those styles?
So that was, I would say, the biggest collaboration I've ever had with an actor in terms of working together and crafting a look, not just a look, but I don't know what the word would be, but we really, I guess I just back up and say it was totally collaborative. So yes, there was direction in the script, and there was a sense of it, but Cheray and I we would separately kind of go, what do you think the palette would be this year? Oh, it will be this, and this. And I would say, okay, that's good. And then we'll figure it out. And it, compared to your fittings, which would be your jumpsuit pretty much, you can imagine what we would wheel into those, it would be fabric and everything. And we spent hours. It took many, many hours every time. But she is, if you're talking about the child primal taking on that character, that's her. And I've never met anybody like her to do that. And she guided me. She will give me all the credit, but she guided me the whole way, of course. And who can wear that but her?
Really. My fittings were. Well, all right, here's the jumpsuit. How dirty is it? Okay, it's this dirty. All right, see you later. All right, see you next season.
Let's add some more crusty blood.
Yeah, are we keeping the bullet holes? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a little more blood.
If you ever need to make sure your retirement is fully funded, all you need to do is take that red outfit that she was wearing in the snow and put it up for auction. Yeah. And your retirement will be funded, because the number one thing that when people talk about props and stuff from the show and say, oh, hey, can you get this? The number one thing everyone asks for is that red outfit from the snow. So, that's your retirement right there.
Yeah.
My favorite moment of Avasarala through everything is that moment in season 6 where her look, her walk, her mannerisms, and her outfit and everything came together right before the meeting with Drummer, when she walks in through walking through the Belters, and it just comes through in the swagger that she has. That is when, that is somebody that has been, that is somebody that's been playing this character for 7 years, who has had all the experience, who knows exactly what she needs to accomplish within that scene, knows how to express that through her walk, through her mannerisms. And you with the wardrobe coming through, everything coming together, that it's just so powerful when you see her for the first time, strolling through that to meet with Drummer for the first time.
That was a pretty collaborative effort too. And by that stage of the show, we had gotten into hand painting, and we were over dyeing leather, and then we'd hand paint it and then spray it and all kinds of stuff. And the inspiration for the pattern on that jacket and her tunic came from Drummer's ship. So that sort of that navy and gold, and then when you look up into the sky or to the ceiling of that ship, that was the inspiration of it. Anyway, I was pretty happy with that. But she can walk in like no one else with that, for sure.
She has this ability, and we've said this before, but I want to repeat it because I don't want to sound like we're bad-mouthing Cheray. Cheray is like one of the warmest people you'll ever meet, right? Just absolutely not domineering or pushy, or she's a sweetheart. But she has the ability, she can turn it on when she needs it for a scene. She has the ability to walk into a room like she owns everything in that room and doesn't even consider that you might question that she owns everything in the room. That hasn't even occurred to her that you might question that.
That's right.
And watching her flip that switch, because, obviously I've talked to Cheray on set many times, and I'll be hanging out with her at her chair, and we'll be chatting. She took my wife out gold shopping the night before, and she's telling me about all the stuff she made Janae buy. So we'll be having this sort of bubbly, upbeat conversation. Then they'll go, Cheray, they're ready for you. She'll walk out on set, and she just changed. She gets taller. Her face gets more still, and she just gets this swagger to her. That is amazing to me. And I'm sure some of it is the costume, because I think when you put those Avasarala outfits on, you can't help but feel like a queen, right? She dresses like a queen, therefore she is a queen, right?
But you are so right. It's Cheray. It's a combination of Cheray inside of that costume. I remember early days with Cheray, and, we were going into a photo shoot, and she tells a story of a photographer who said, comment about her, what were you going to do? And she said, oh, I'll do this. And she said, will you sit up straight? Because without good posture, you'll not have a good photo, or something like that. And I always think of her, and when you said that, she stands up straighter and takes that. It's there. It's all there. Yeah.
The Expanse is so challenging on so many different levels. What was the most challenge that you've been with The Expanse from you working on it?
Honestly, it was setting up the groundwork and coming up with those basic concepts that we didn't know at the time, but they became our building blocks for the rest of the show. And I think the hardest for me was really coming up with the vac suits and to worry it's going to be something that isn't viable, or is somehow not credible. And so really that was the hardest, but the good thing was it was the most collaborative, because I think everyone else had the same concerns and wanting to make sure that it could fly, essentially. And I think once all those elements came together, and once we got enough aging and breakdown on them and in those sets, and I think it worked. But to answer your question, it was coming up with all those elements, like kind of a language, I guess, about what is the language of what do you do in your everyday life and what do you wear to do that. And back to that, I really didn't want it to be in that world of science fiction that was so clean and unbelievable, and that it broke your what is
Spirit.
that?
No, I'm just kidding.
Spirit. Well, that too. No,
your suspension
what
of
is that
disbelief.
when you break that? Yeah. And so I guess to say once you start feeling like it's working, then the less visible those costumes are, the better. Or the less you think about it and more that you feel like this is part of that world, the better. And other than Cheray, which you're kind of going for the opposite, but in the same way, she needs to keep portraying that.
Well, Joanne is not throwing us under the bus right now, which she totally could, because part of the reason why all that was so challenging is we never gave her enough money or time, ever. We never gave her enough money to do it, and she did it anyway. So I'm sure we increased the difficulty level on you much more than it should have been. If we had just, if we'd had the money to give you to do it right, I'm sure it would have been a lot easier.
Words Joanne has never heard is just relax, take your time, whenever you're ready. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about money. Go do your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. She has never heard that. She has never heard, don't worry about the money. It's fine.
Yeah.
Look, spend what you need to spend.
Okay. Make as many prototypes as you want. So the only thing I can say is, luckily or hopefully you hit it right fairly soon in this short amount of time and money. But I did kind of come to understand that you can't really decide too far in advance. You can't really say this is going to look like this, and 2 months from now when the actor comes in the room, it's going to look like that. It does not go that way. And so maybe there's some more, these restraints, as difficult as they are, they kind of force you to make some decisions or choices that you don't think about all too much. And sometimes I think that's a good thing, honestly. I think, we can overthink things and then you end up in some muddy territory. So I don't know. Not always, but
we do this thing at the end of the podcast called Top 5. I don't know if Joseph talked to you about this.
he briefly mentioned it to me. Yeah.
Expanse inspired things, and this, in your case, you are inspiring this, and then we take a top 5 list of whatever that topic is, that we are inspired to do. So this one is best costume in sci-fi fantasy movies, and then we go through and we pick out we just kind of discuss and talk about what we think is the top 5 movies and the reasons why, and then we come up with that top 5 list, and then that goes in the annals of history, and then that is the right top 5. Nobody can challenge. You want to come on this?
Okay.
So this one is best costumes in sci-fi movies, and if you haven't seen any of these, we'll talk about that as well. So Flash Gordon, The Fifth Element, The Matrix, Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, Dark City. That was a good pick. Was that you, Ty, that chose that one?
It was me.
That's a great
No,
movie.
but I love that movie.
Star Trek 2, Ricardo's chest outfit, Barbarella. That's interesting. Blade Runner, obviously. Tron, Legacy, Mad Max, Fury Road, Labyrinth. Labyrinth. David Bowie, The Chronicles of Riddick, Boo, Dune, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mad Max 2, Star Wars Phantom Menace, Marvel DC, and RoboCop.
Right out of the gate, my nostalgia pick is absolutely Khan's boob window from Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. That's my nostalgia pick right out of the gate, because I remember seeing that as a little kid, or not a little kid, but a younger person, and thinking like, oh my God, I didn't realize that the guy from Fantasy Island was so jacked. Look at him, man. He's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I never knew that. What was his name on Fantasy Island? Mr. Rourke, I think. Yeah. Mr. Rourke is jacked.
Like that his hair and his chest hair match. And that was awesome. And, and he had like beautiful mane of hair and beautiful chest hair that was coming over.
And that window, that pec display window, whereas like the outfit covers everything, but you're gonna want to see these pecs. Right. So here's a little window for you, so you can see these things. Like, because outfits do that to women all the time, right? Like there'll be an outfit that covers every single part of a woman's body, but somehow it will plunge down to show her cleavage, right? Mm-hmm. Finally, the men get an outfit that is as awesome as the women's outfits, that covers everything and plunges down to show the cleavage. Finally, men are getting that. I appreciate that about that.
For my money, right off the back, David Bowie alone is putting Labyrinth on its shoulders and carrying it to the top 5 list, because nobody pulls off a codpiece like David Bowie. And his outfits and hairstyles and music, his whole creative expression in that movie puts him on the top 5.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing with Bowie and a codpiece is, and I have a whole rant on Bowie and a codpiece, is most guys who put on a big codpiece, that's all show and no go, right? The thing you know about Bowie, if he puts on a big codpiece, that codpiece is full. Because he's got that swagger. He's got that swagger. You know that codpiece is completely full.
Cod energy.
Yep. Yep. He's got big cod energy.
Did you see Labyrinth?
I probably have. I don't recall it now at all. There's a lot of these I haven't seen.
If you just Google the song "Dance Magic Dance" or YouTube it, you'll get a lot of glimpse of what we're talking about with David Bowie in this.
He brought his own cod.
And hopefully Joseph is going to throw a little clip of that in here.
Oh, you know it.
Joanne, is there anything in the pool that we missed? Is there anything, like I was thinking Legends of the Fall, maybe, is there anything in there that you were...
But that's not a sci-fi or fantasy
movie. I forgot about that. Is there...
Yeah.
Is there anything that when you saw the list, you're like, oh, I wish this was there, or they thought about this?
For my world, I enjoy something like Barbarella.
Yeah.
Just, for the kitsch of it, I guess, and Jane Fonda and all of that. Yeah, the Matrix is like the Matrix, right? And from a costume point of view, I don't know how many years after the Matrix came out, people would say, I want a black coat. You know, like the one on Matrix, right? And it was the bane of costume designers to be like, oh, what kind of fabric is it? How are we going to make it move like that? What are we going to do? Oh, they'd have their tricks and what they did. Anyway, so influence-wise, I guess it's there.
The interesting thing about the Matrix, though, based on stuff you've already said, Joanne, is it's two worlds in the Matrix. You've got the flashy, flowing coats and skin-tight leather and all that stuff of being inside the Matrix, but you've got the almost Belter-like look of the people outside the Matrix, because they live in a dirty, greasy spaceship and they wear ratty old moth-eaten clothes. And so from a costume design standpoint, you have to support both of those things.
Yeah, totally. That's true. That's true.
You know, in the opening scene in Barbarella, she's getting dressed. Yeah. You know, like that whole thing when she's floating and all the clothes. And so the clothes is a very big part of that movie.
Which, by the way, still some pretty great fucking zero-G work in Barbarella, man. The floating around and getting dressed scene, I mean, it's designed to be titillating. Barbarella's designed to be titillating. And it is that. Jane Fonda's, you know, she's hottie. But the work they did in the 60s for that floating zero-G stuff, that's as good as stuff people are doing today. I mean, it's really great.
I was going to say Mad Max that's pretty awesome.
That's one of our favorites. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, well, and the Immortan Joe stuff, because it's Joanne, you were talking about this, that it's not just costumes, because you had to meet with, like, on the Expanse, you had to meet with Jim from props because he was doing pieces of it. Yep. The great thing about the Immortan Joe costume in Fury Road is you can tell it's a combination of everything. It's costume, it's props, because he's got that like moving like air bladder on his back and the mask, you know. So there's a lot of elements going into that look. That's a lot of different departments.
But the look and the vibe in itself tells a story, right? It is an expression of the environment and everything they're living in. And when you see Immortan Joe with like what you were talking about, the breathers and everything, you get a history of that world and what it's like and what these people are going through. And this is a really hard list, and this is one of the harder topics, because if you look at something like Lord of the Rings, I mean, what they accomplished there. And so sometimes you got to take into account money and budget and what they had time, and then how that really contributes and enhances the story. But Mad Max Fury Road works on all levels. I mean, and it's interesting in itself. Like if there was paintings of each scene in Mad Max, you would be fascinated by it because of these crazy, outlandish. And I like when it tips into weird, right? Like where weird is interesting, so it tips into the thing of weird. If you're like, what is going on? Like Dune does that. I think Dune is a good thing with the spacesuits, you know, and the blue eyes. And...
Yeah, those are awesome. I think when it tips into weird and you still buy it, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned this already, and it's something we've talked about before on this show, is that everything on screen tells a story, whether you mean it to or not, whether you thought it through or not. And so the best filmmakers, and I'm including every department, you know, it's not just directors who are filmmakers, prop people are filmmakers, costume people are filmmakers, right? Every person who's on set who is a filmmaker and is good at their job, that's the reason why. Because every single thing they're putting on screen, they have a story in their head for why it's there. Who brought that there? Who used it? Why did they use it? Did they use it recently? Should it have grease on it because it just came out of the mine? You know, like they're thinking through all of those elements. And so when the thing appears on screen, your brain may only see it for a second or two as the camera moves past it. But we're so subconscious. Our brains are so trained to assign intent to everything we see without even thinking about it, that we feel like we're in a real world, because it's like, oh, somebody left their tool over there. It's still got grease on it. Oh, that costume has a rip. They must have been working somewhere dangerous. Like, you're not consciously thinking those things, but your unconscious is thinking those things, and and that's what sucks you into the world. And what Narain told me very early on is, he said, the people you want to work with, the people who are good at this job, are the people you show up and they don't just show you, here's a thing I can buy and we could use it. There's like, this thing looks like a kind of thing that a person in this world would use, and we think we could add a light for a battery. Like, they're the people you want to work with. And costumes, I think, and that I was talking to you about. You early on, we went and we looked at your boards, and you had miners on the board, and we think these people are miners, and they have miner kind of outfit. That immediately, now having done this for 7 years and having a much better sense of what works on screen and what doesn't, if I walked into a room now and got that kind of thing from somebody like you, I would immediately have so much more comfort. Like about, I'm in good hands. I'm safe now because this person has been thinking through the story and the story of every prop, the story of every outfit. Some of our 8 listeners are like wannabe filmmakers. If you're a wannabe filmmaker, every single thing you put on screen, somebody should have thought of the story of why that thing is there and where it came from and who used it. Yep.
And I think, we talk about it's storytelling. It's always storytelling, and you understand it from an actor's point of view or a director's point of view very clearly, or a writer's point of view. But when it comes to all of these other elements, the sets, the costumes, the props, it's exactly what you say, and that is it. We're telling a story too. And I guess those are the layers, the nuanced layers that back that up, as you say, that we feel or see without even really knowing it.
Yeah. What white outfit are you talking about, Joseph?
The Cheray, the Cheray and Amos white outfit.
The white outfits, yes.
I'm still so bummed we didn't get it in the show. But we'll talk about that when we finish the list. That'll be the bonus thing.
Gotcha.
So one thing that I think is missing from this list, to kind of go to both of your points of what y'all were talking about earlier, is A New Hope, Star Wars A New Hope, because what Lucas accomplished because that was just a low-budget sci-fi weirdo movie, right? Nobody really knew what it was or anything. They had no money. They had no time. And if you watch the behind the scenes and you watch what they pulled off with what they had, and it was just ingenuity. It was thinking on the spot and how they, I mean, even if you think about the cantina, like how each alien was dressed and everything, and this is in the 70s, and it left an indelible mark that those outfits that they figured out on the fly, and they're staying up night and creating these things are still in they're still making shows about them. They're still in our minds. They're still in those looks and vibes. And, later on when they got more money, then that's a different thing. But in the early days, they were just scrappy, guys, English guys just making it happen. And I think that belongs on the top 5 as well.
So what are we thinking?
I haven't been on the show in a while. Can I throw in a classic Clint curveball?
Who the fuck are you?
Oh, Clint, really?
2 things. One, if we're talking about filling cod pieces in sci-fi, I want to add honorable mention for Sean Connery and Zardoz.
Oh my!
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then it's a movie that I don't know if everybody's seen, so I'm not, or at least might not remember well. But in the early 2000s, there's a Jennifer Lopez movie called The Cell.
Oh my gosh, I was going to put that on the list.
Yeah, I've seen The Cell. Yep.
The Cell's costuming is incredible. Yeah. There's entire scenes where essentially the costuming becomes also the scenery, and it's really stunning.
Oh wow!
Yeah. The Cell is a movie that has amazing a look to it. Like every shot is gorgeous, right? And the costuming is gorgeous, and some of the effects are amazing. And it's still a terrible movie.
Yeah. It has great moments.
It's like,
right.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
But it looks amazing. When it's on, I'll watch it just for the look of it. The look of it is
Joanne. If you get a chance,
cool.
I bet you would enjoy watching that movie because what they do with costumes, it's mind blowing. Talk about the original idea for those white outfits and how it got vetoed to be on the show.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of the white jumpsuit in its origin. it was, we all have a wall of shame somewhere in our departments. I had a big long rack of a wall of shame. So, some creation, like you're talking about a collaborative thing going on, and, I don't remember, maybe season 2 or 3 or something, some new direction for something maybe to do with the proto molecule. I don't really recall anymore, but it was like, okay, let's try it's Narain. Well, let's try a light colored suit. Okay. And maybe it has to, a little bit of reflection or whatever. Anyway, we put this thing together and it's like, no, that is like the worst thing in the world. It's like a shiny satin jumpsuit, but Totally. So we put it away, never think about it. And then as we're winding up, we're thinking, okay, well, this is, a moment when you can have fun with cast and actors and the set and get away with it. And nobody's going to get too upset if you take a little time. And so that's how it came to you. It's like, what do you think? Would you wear that? Madame is wearing white at the end. Wouldn't this be awesome? And then we're like, I'm going to see if they'll let me wear it. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
I so badly, and I was like creating the story to make it make sense. I was like, oh God, I got to wait. It had the rhinestones. I mean, it was Elvis in Honolulu. I mean, it was phenomenal, and it had a little bit of that
awesome.
chest line, like Star Trek too.
Totally did.
Yeah, you got the little plunging chest line,
whatever.
Nice. So Joanne, the mistake you made is you never dare Wes, because Wes will take any dare. He will take any dare. He will always call your bluff, no matter what ridiculous thing you tell him you want him to do. He will go, yeah, I'll try that. So that was your mistake.
She brought it out for a laugh.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we're like, oh no. Yeah, it's true. And the crew is going, oh no, but it's all like, it's bedazzled.
I have pictures. I have pictures of me and Cheray in our outfits. I'll send them to you. That we can we'll post them up there while we do this. Cool. But this was so much fun. Oh, did we do the top 5?
Well, what are we going to say the top 5 are? I mean, you can pull Ricardo's plunging neckline out if you want. I mean, because outside of Montalban's ample bosom, it's not great costume wise for everything else. So you can pull that out.
No, I think Joanne should solidify the top 5.
Yeah, Joanne should definitely pick.
I don't know. I don't think I can do that. Okay, if I'm going to do it, I'll say Mad Max.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Strong choice.
Strong choice. Now, Joseph definitely needs to. Zardoz is not going to wind up in the top 5, but we definitely need that clip of Connery in the thigh high boots.
No.
Oh my! This is the best.
Oh, it's amazing. Thigh high boots and a banana hammock with suspenders. With suspenders. Now, the balls
literally
that you have to have to say, not only am I wearing, literally and figuratively, not only am I going to wear a banana hammock, but there is so much going on down there that I better wear some suspenders to keep this thing on.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at this.
Oh my God. Awesome.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That right there, that shot is 100% of what a man should be. Thigh-high boots, banana hammock, and bandolier of ammo.
What I love so much about that is Sean Connery was a star at that point. So he had to go in the fitting and say, yes, this outfit. Nobody's going to make Sean Connery wear something he doesn't want to wear. He had to say, yes,
do you know
this is the one.
Do you know who did the costume design on that movie? The director's wife. And it's the only movie she ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was Borman, the director, who's a very famous director, did a lot of big pictures. He directed that movie. His wife was somehow the costume designer on that movie, had never done costume design before that, has never did costume design after that. That's... Yeah. Okay, so it happened. If it had happened in the 80s, I would assume it was entirely cocaine-based.
Right.
But it happened in the 70s. So I don't know what drug they were smoking or shooting. Yeah, but nobody has ever been that high.
LSD.
LSD.
Okay, maybe LSD.
Maybe
LSD I could see, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Dude.
Because I know a lot of people who smoke a lot of pot, and I have never seen anybody that high.
You got to have the confidence of Sean Connery to be able to look at that outfit and say, that one. Like,
Yeah.
I could see him going through the rack, just like you were talking about Sound of Music. With,
Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer.
I see him
This
going
one,
through the thing and saying,
This
that
one.
one, and pulling it out. And be like, this is the one. We have unlocked the key. That's hilarious. All right, go back to the list, Joseph. Okay, so Mad Max number 1. What's number 2? I mean,
they're all
yeah.
good choices. Yeah.
You could almost leave him as it is.
Yep.
You know?
I think so.
Labyrinth, Barbarella, The Matrix, Star Wars, and
Honorable mention.
honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we would be remiss if we didn't discuss the real number 1, which is what, Ty?
Don't do it. Don't.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that the best costuming ever done in movies is Die Hard.
Die Hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
like Bruce Willis and his white, slowly turning black T-shirt over the course of the movie.
Continuity alone is worth to be number 1 on that list. The continuity of how that got dirty and bloody throughout, and they didn't shoot that movie in sequence. So, but Joanne, we choose Die Hard number 1 for everything, so we're not allowed to do it anymore.
Awesome.
And Clint doesn't like Die Hard. Clint's upset because he's a Harry Potter guy. So every time, and I'm sure, Clint, I'm surprised you didn't bring up that we're missing Harry Potter in the fantasy pool.
I'm not a Harry Potter guy, but honestly, Harry Potter I think deserves to be there more than like The Matrix.
That's insanity.
Those costumes are incredible, and I will say that
Fair.
I'm not a Fifth Element person, but those costumes are incredible. That's all Jean-Paul Gaultier.
I do love this sort of Mobius look of Fifth Element, and how outrageous everything feels. But I do feel like it tips over the scale into outrageous for outrageous sake, I never ever believe anyone actually would wear that outfit. Like everything is just like, here's the most outrageous thing a person could be wearing, and that's their costume, right? And that's the Mobius kind of feel for me. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great time. This has been very special. We got the great Joanne on with us, and we're so thankful, and it's so good seeing you again. I always love seeing you. We got a reunion with Clint Trucks in the house, and this was great. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.
Thanks for having me.